Our next Reddit post is from Deadly Gerbil. I worked for a major U.S. telecommunications company for over 10 years. One of the jobs I had there was as emergency overnight tech support for our major accounts. I'm talking about accounts like emergency services, traffic lights, the FBI, NASA, and the White House. I personally fixed the White House Chief of Staff's phone twice. All of this was handled by 11 people in a call center that was one of 2 in the country that were open all night, mainly for customers who were overseas. Because we were such a small team and the people we dealt with were the overnight IT people at their various companies, we were on a first-name basis with many of the techs who called us. Then, one day, the VP of our company decides to step down as VP and take a job as the head of another call center. His brilliant idea is to make his call center the only call center for all business and government accounts in the country, including the ones my team handled overnight. Naturally, this meant dissolving my team. We were all very upset. We liked our job. Only the absolute best techs got to be in our team, and for good reason. When something we handled went down, it had to be taken care of fast. And some of the systems we dealt with were so obscure or old that no one at the company except us and our daytime colleagues even knew they existed. This also meant that we had to be ready to answer at a moment's notice, so we spent most of the night doing nothing, just waiting for a call. The companies and government entities paid extra for this quick response. Even so, over the years, my team kept getting assigned more and more little jobs to do, quote, between calls, which we handled easily because, well, we were the best. It was almost my dream job. So when we get word that our jobs are going to this other call center that, until now, wasn't even open overnight, we were upset. Yet most of my team was still pretty supportive. We offered to train the new techs at the other call center. Some of us even offered to travel there for a week or so to do it, but we were all turned down. Our last week in the job comes, and we're there mainly as backup for the new team in the other call center. We're not being routed calls, but we're ready on chat if the new guys have any questions. The questions start coming in, and they're not what we expected. Instead of asking about obscure, outdated systems that no one but us even knew about, the new team is asking us about things like how to fill out a timesheet for a shift that starts before midnight and ends after. And this was their supervisor asking me. We end up answering really basic questions that anyone at our call center, much less anyone on our team, would have known. And we all got a bit worried. Then the supervisor who asked me about the timesheets asks how many calls we typically get in a night. And I say, between 2 and 5 per person, usually. Then he asks how many people were on my team. 11, I say. 8 to 10 on any given night. Oh, the supervisor says, we have 33. I wondered why we were getting so few calls. They didn't have to do the little tasks my team did between calls either. They couldn't. They weren't even trained for the calls they were getting. The next week, my team was transferred into the normal overnight call queue, handling boring calls from people who didn't read or listen to the directions we gave them about how to make their phones work while overseas. Sigh. A week after that, other regular overnight reps start asking me and the other former elite reps questions about systems that only we would know about. Suspicious. A few days later, I get a call transferred to me, and it's one of the overnight IT guys from the major accounts. I ask how he got hold of me, and he says that the first guy he talked to transferred him to me. Turns out, of course, that the untrained reps of the new call center were still untrained. So they were just dumping the calls into my call center's general queue and hoping that out of the 60 or so techs working there, the one who'd pick up would be from the former major accounts team. Since 3 of our 11 people had quit when our team was dissolved, the odds of that were pretty dang low, which meant it took multiple transfers, which meant they weren't getting the help they needed in the time frame my company was contractually obligated to provide. I went to the director of my call center to let him know about this, hoping it would mean that since the new team was failing that hard, the company would see reason and reinstate my team again. Nope. My director informed me that the team would not, under any circumstances, be reinstated at our call center. I could tell he was not happy about this at all. So then came the malicious compliance. My director told me and every other overnight tech at my center that if we were transferred a call for a major account, we were not to touch it. as we were not authorized to handle those accounts. The next night, the accounts wouldn't even open for us because our, quote, security clearance had suddenly been revoked. We were to transfer all such calls back to the correct queue. We were also instructed to forward any correspondence sent to us from the new major accounts team to our supervisors, whether chat or email. In a few days, the transfers to our call center stopped. Now, I wish I could say the company saw the error of its ways. My team was reinstated and everything went back to the way it was, but it didn't. Instead, the company hemorrhaged major accounts like crazy. We lost accounts whose monthly bills were in the millions of dollars due to our failure to keep the terms of our contracts. Barely a month after it was created, the overnight team at the other call center was disbanded and the jobs outsourced. Then the outsourcers started transferring the calls to my center. Again, I went to our director, hoping against hope my team would be reinstated. Nope, but the transfer stopped again, and the company lost even more multi-million-dollar accounts. Last year, the company announced the layoffs of tens of thousands of employees. I wonder why. I saw the writing on the wall and got the heck out with the best severance package I could. So did my call center director. He was no fool either. All because some idiot executive had a bright idea and not even the slightest clue how to execute it. I live in a subdivision connected to a major road. The road out of the subdivision has a traffic light. In the morning, nearly everybody needs to turn left for work. Even if you want to turn right, you're simply stuck because there isn't enough room for more than one car. To compound the problem, the traffic light is green for no more than 5 seconds. We may get 4 to 5 cars out legally. Then you have to wait another 3 to 4 minutes before the light switches. As you can imagine, this causes people to run the light, swerve around somebody they thought should have gone, etc. It's a grab bag of idiots in cars, myself included. If you roll up to the light and see that you are 15 cars back, you know you've just added 10 minutes to your commute simply trying to get out of your subdivision. Well, because of all of our reckless driving behavior, the police communicated via our HOA that we needed to knock it off. They had a police car parked near our area every morning for a week to keep us on our best behavior. Our board tried to work with the city to link them to light, but to no avail. That's when a hero emerged. We get a random email to the HOA distribution list from an anonymous person. They laid out our plan for malicious compliance. There is a pedestrian crosswalk light at the before-mentioned intersection that basically goes unused. In my 10 years living there, I have never seen it used. There just simply isn't any pedestrian traffic. The subdivision hero devised a plan on how to use the crosswalk to our advantage. Basically, one person in their car simply needs to walk over and hit the push button to cross and run back to their car. When the light switches, we now get 30 seconds to alleviate our traffic jam. Everybody is joining in, and it's hilarious. My oldest daughter got to do it the other day, and the other cars in the line were rolling down their windows and cheering her on. It's possibly the best neighborhood bonding experience possible. I'm sure our longer lights are screwing up something further down the line, but none of us really care. We're now on our best behavior since we have about 5. Our first post is from Technos. Years ago, one of my employer's clients decided to set up a new office in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I got chosen to spend 3 weeks there getting the new space set up. Also chosen for the job was a guy from another division Chicago office, Dave. I'd never worked with Dave before, but from the start, I didn't like him much. He was never less than 15 minutes late. He lumbered like a zombie, and I caught him dozing off more than a few times during the first week on site. Still, he was the closest thing I had to a friend in Fort Wayne, so I invited him out to a bar on Friday for all the company-funded booze we could drink. I wish, he says. I'm going home and passing out until Monday. The commute has been killing me. Wait, what? It seems Dave's boss had been a dick, and instead of paying for a plane ticket, hotel, and rental car like my boss had, he'd instructed Dave to drive from Chicago, almost 3 hours away. I said, dude, that is like totally no bueno. 6 hours a day just driving? Yeah, it sucks. Still, it'll be killer money. That puts you at what, like 70 hours this week? Jeez. Make sure you put in for your gas and tolls quick, though. The last time I had to get reimbursed for expenses, it took them over a month. I could see what little light Dave's eyes held fade. They're not paying for any of that. Hearing that, I put in a call to my boss, who was as puzzled as I was. If he'd worked for our division, he'd be paid for his drive time and expenses at least. And we were both pretty sure it was corporate edict and not something individual divisions could choose not to obey. Unfortunately, neither I nor my boss had any say in the matter, and neither of us were familiar with Illinois or Indiana labor law. So all we could do was advise Dave to save his receipts for the IRS and complain to HR. On Monday, Dave was late again. After an hour, I was worried and called his cell phone. I just passed Portage, making pretty good time all things considered. I should be there in about 2 hours. Dave sounded perfectly happy about it, so I figured he'd been required to stop into his office before heading out for some reason. Okay, Dave, I'll see you then. When Dave arrived a little after 11, the first thing he did was take a 15-minute break. Long drive, I understood. There was still most of the day ahead of us, and after the break, Dave finally got down to business booting up his computer. He had barely logged in when he stood up and announced he was taking his lunch. Okay, something was going on, but I hadn't the foggiest idea what. After lunch, Dave finally got around to some work, putting in a good 20 minutes reading email before stopping by to see me. I'm going to take my 15-minute break now, then I'm heading home. What? Dave, grinning like a nut. Don't worry, I spoke to HR over the weekend. I didn't see Dave on Tuesday. His cell phone was going unanswered, and neither my boss or I had any luck finding out why. We didn't try hard. Not our zoo and not our monkey, after all. Ditto for Wednesday, but whatever. He's probably just sick. And then on Thursday, I see Dave before work at the hotel breakfast buffet. Dave, I was getting worried when you were a no-show for the last 2 days. Dave laughed a little, and after we'd piled our plates with bad scrambled eggs and burned sausage, he told me a story. On Monday, the client had noticed him coming in late, doing no work and leaving early, and called our company to complain. Dave, in turn, was called into a disciplinary meeting with his boss and local HR, who were prepared to terminate him for putting in for 32 hours of unearned overtime the previous week and not working at all the day before. Dave said they were serious, too. One of the guys from building security interrupted the meeting to deliver a box containing the personal effects from his desk. Dave had an ace, though. Well, 3 aces. 1, an email from his boss instructing him to drive to Fort Wayne every day at his own expense as a change in work location. 2, an email from corporate HR telling him that while he wasn't required to work overtime, he was required to report any overtime worked, including driving to or from a client. And 3, a page from his division's employee manual, which covered paid breaks offsite. He then informed them that he was not working any more overtime. And after driving 3 hours in, 1.5 hours of breaks, and 3 hours home, it left him with just a half an hour a day to do actual work. Less, actually, if the traffic was bad. Oh, and that corporate HR was willing to stand behind him on it. He'd just spoken to them before the meeting. It took them about 3 seconds to realize they were screwed. And well, here I am, back in action. And since everything was booked last minute, I'm in a suite with a jacuzzi and my rental is a dang Cadillac.